Penguin Random House Audio presents The Power of Knitting, Stitching Together Our Lives in a Fractured World by Loretta Napoleoni. Read for you by Elizabeth Wiley. Note to listeners: this program includes a downloadable PDF that contains knitting patterns from the book. Author's Note: when personal catastrophe struck, I turned to the disciplines of my profession, economics, politics, the social sciences, to help me piece my life back together. I soon realized that these fields of knowledge and wisdom were not enough for such a challenging task. I needed something stronger, something universal, something that would keep me anchored to the beauty of life, a powerful, positive instrument to give me courage and hope. As I looked back at my life, at the many lessons I received when I was a child to prepare me to navigate it, I realized that knitting had been my constant companion, a craft I shared with those I love and who love me, a tangible activity that has kept me connected to the universal positive attributes of humanity. In the virtual world, images, texts, and voices reach us in real time through the screens of our smartphones, tablets, and computers. Yet these are little more than mere exchanges among machines and microchips. In the sterile, cold cyber universe we inhabit, people touch, smell, kiss, and hug each other less and less. Our connections are sense-deprived. We are physically detached. I am physically detached. I can Skype with my children across the world every day, but I do not hug them for months on end, and I miss them deeply. In the early 1990s, a major political event reshaped my life. The Red Brigades, the Italian Marxist group, declared an end to their armed struggle and began talking to a few select people about their experience. I was one of those people. To conduct my investigation, I left my job as an economist with the City of London and spent years interviewing members of armed organizations. When I realized it is economics more than politics that influences their behavior, I focused my work on their financing. Then 9/11 happened, and my research, knowledge, and insight into the funding of armed groups became very valuable to those who wanted to understand and fight modern terrorism. As the war on terror took shape, coupled with the advent of virtual life and globalization, the world was forced into a major transformation. Fear and isolation became the demons of the new millennium. I wrote several books to bear witness to these extraordinary and painful changes of the last 20 years. Rereading some of them made me realize that society is not coping with the current transition we are undergoing. To rebalance our personal and public lives, we must heal the hurts we have suffered and shield ourselves from future damage. The challenge we face is so unconventional that psychology, politics, and economics, the traditional tools used to cure society's malaise, are useless. Because we are sailing in uncharted waters, we must find alternative skills with which to navigate our present journey. We need to experiment with unexpected forms of healing. In other words, we must think outside the box. Even in our private lives, physical isolation and virtual communication impair traditional social behavior. Because we do not know how to behave during this transformational time, society has become increasingly dysfunctional, and people have become delusional. I realized this for myself when my husband brought me and our family to the brink of financial ruin at the end of the 2010s, and I had to reinvent my life one more time. I feel like an old but strong yarn in the hands of a mediocre and insecure knitter who keeps making big mistakes and changing her mind about what to knit. I have been knitted, undone, and reknitted several times over. I have been washed, stretched, and dried before being restitched and repurled so often I have lost count. Each time, the pattern of life I must follow becomes more challenging, more demanding. And yet, I have managed to perform almost as well as a brand new yarn. But this time is different. This is the last attempt. I have reached my limit. I must get the pattern right. The world we inhabit, including my own personal and professional worlds, is voyeuristic, antisocial, and highly technological. It is lonely and full of existential cracks, fractured, and it takes less than a second to fall into one of its crevasses. Could this be the root cause of the existential malaise that plagues us all? I long for the warm coziness of intimacy and safety, the sole antidotes for the chronic cyber solitude we suffer from. It was knitting that gave me a way out of the abyss, helping me to climb back up. Teaching a close friend's child how to knit one day brought back the memory of when my own grandmother first put a knitting needle in my hands. The wool, the pattern, the excitement of the long and skinny metal rod in my goddaughter's little hands, my fingers over hers, everything was the same. I was performing an ancient ritual of initiation, a ceremony immune to time and technology. I am not alone. I am the stitch between two beautiful pearls, between my grandmother and my goddaughter, and together we are a knit stitch in the great pattern of social history. Alessandra Olano, the illustrator of the hardcover version of this book, shares my views. She accepted the invitation to participate in this project because knitting had created a special bond for her between her dying mother and the daughter in Alessandra's own womb. For months, she had knit for her baby at her mother's bedside, and the yarn became the link, the connection between the two women she most loves. I reknit my life from ground zero while researching and writing this book. But this is neither an audiobook about me, nor just a vehicle for knitting patterns, which are in the downloadable PDF included with this audiobook. Each chapter showcases one pattern, which symbolizes its message. But I also refer to knitted items I cared about and have lost during my lifetime. This is the story of a remarkable craft, a much-needed social healer that reminds us that to exist, we need each other. Knitting is a good metaphor for our life. It can be related to everything we care about, from politics to economics to personal relationships. My aim is to address complex and often painful issues, both public and private, using knitting as a means to unravel and understand them. All we need to do to break free of our existential malaise is to keep purling and stitching, knitting our lives together. Introduction. Knitting the patterns of love, politics, and economics. A headband, a light blue headband, was the first thing I knitted. I must have been 6 or 7 years old when I picked up my first needles under the supervision of my grandmother. If I close my eyes, I can still see, in the golden patina of my most precious memories, the two of us. We are sitting so close. Her elbow is underneath mine,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?